Okay, I want to talk a little bit about sockets. So, one of the big misconceptions in the hand tool world is that all hand tools are kind of the same, and you use them and you throw them away, and you just replace them if they break. Well, when it comes to sockets and the ratchets, that really isn't true. And if you're just starting off as a mechanic, let's say you've got a teenager who wants to get into automotive repairs or whatever. When you go to buy your first set of sockets for whoever it is, whether it's yourself or somebody else, you wanna get a nicer set, right? You don't want to go off and buy the ones that are on sale, the made in China ones, or the ones that perhaps aren't really in the higher end bracket. And the reason is because they're not the same, right? So if you look at the socket and you look at the metal that's used to make up the sockets and the ratchets, they're not all the same. The cheaper ones are going to be a softer steel, and then the more expensive ones, the ones that are in the Craftsman categories, the Snap-ons and the Mac tools, those are all, I would say, the best ones, and those are going to have the hardest steel, and some of those have a lifetime warranty as well. So when you're talking about ratchets, that's one thing you definitely don't want to skimp on, because once you start to buy the sockets and the ratchets, you're going to have these things forever. You're not going to just throw these away, because they're never going to break. And if the ratchets themselves, they break, the mechanisms that are inside on the Craftsman's, those are guaranteed for life. So let's say, for example, the 1/4 inch ones, they're really the ones that usually tend to break, right? And they don't break a lot. So when I say they break, it's not normal for the ratchet to ever break. It could last the entire life without breaking. But the failure points within the ratchets are going to be in the wheels and in the mechanisms that actually do the ratcheting part of it. If that fails, these are warranted for life by Craftsman. You can take that to any Craftsman store that sells them, and they will replace the ratchet wheel mechanism for you. It actually just pops right out, and they give you a new one, and they pop it in, right? So I've done that. I've had it replaced on the 1/4 inch just because I put too much torque on it. So it's easy to over torque the 1/4 inch because they are so small. Not so easy on the other sizes, like the 3/8 and the 1/2 inch drive ones, right? Because the 1/2 inch drive can obviously take a lot more torque than the 1/4 inch drive, right? So that's just common sense, I guess. So that's one thing. So think about that. Lifetime warranty on the higher end ones. The steel is much harder on the higher end ones, so you're not going to round them off. And when I say round them off, if you look at these 3 sockets, right? The one on the left is a Craftsman. I've had it over 30 years. It is absolutely perfect. And I use my tools a lot, right? I'm a hobbyist mechanic, and I use my tools a lot. And I've been using them for about 30, 35 years. So this Craftsman socket looks great. It's absolutely undamaged on the inside. These made in China ones, not so much great, right? So they're rounded off, they have dents and divots, and almost to the point where this will strip the nut, and then once you round the nut, you're going to be left, in a bad situation, obviously. So these 2 guys, made in China perhaps, and the steel is not the hardened steel that's used on the higher end sockets. And so that's what will happen. They'll round off. And then what happens is you just throw these out, right? You're gonna throw these away because they're no good. And you don't want to use those because you're gonna cause damage versus being able to do the work you're trying to accomplish with the socket. So that's my advice. If you're looking for a socket set, go with a nicer set, go with the Craftsman's. There's some other brands that are also nice, and I'm not trying to sell one brand over another, but do your homework and do your research and look for a brand that has the hardened steel and that perhaps has a lifetime warranty on the ratchet mechanisms, on the ratchets, and then you're gonna have these forever. I've had all these sockets my entire life, and so this is kind of what happens. You collect a bunch of different brands, and then the ones that are made in China will be destroyed, and then the ones that the Craftsmans and and the snap-ons and the Mac tools, they'll survive and they'll end up in your drawer. They cost more, but you'll have them forever. And when you go to use them, they'll be in good shape, and you'll be able to get able to get things like the nuts that you're trying to get off easily, or the bolts you're trying to turn easily without stripping the actual the bolts or the nuts, right? So that is key. So that's my advice. Don't skimp out on socket sets or ratchets. It's definitely not worth it. Get a nicer set. You'll have it forever. And that's really what I would recommend when it comes to sockets and ratchets.